Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment Dharma friends sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Vairochana Mahamudra. Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya.
Please stand for our chanting of the three letters. We'll chant first in Sino-Korean, which is in keeping with our tradition, and then we'll recite in English. Go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
Teachings.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please remain standing. On this 5th day of May, 2024, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native people, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fires, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be historically a Black neighborhood during times of racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence here at this service this morning extend to all beings on the planet and throughout time and space. May there be deepening of our inter-being. May peace prevail and wars cease. And in the spirit of our each contributing to this spirit, let us make 3 slow bows. Please be seated. We will have our Dharma talk now rather than another period. This morning, 2 violets in bloom at the front door, and 2 irises the first. And all of you in from the 10 directions, welcome. And we have our precious Dharma teacher in from Lawrence, Kansas, my dear friend of many, many years, Judy Logan. May I introduce her a little more? Let's see. We have both been members of the American Zen Teachers Association for many years. And that's how I originally met her on a street in San Francisco, outside the San Francisco Zen Center, when some of us were having a good laugh. And Judy at that time had long curly hair and continues to be as vivacious as she was then. And then we shared rooms at various conferences, did prostrations together, because she was in our related Zen family from the Kwan Zen school. We're in the Buddhist Society for Compassionate Wisdom. Both of us have Korean teachers. And so when we were rooming at the conference, Judy would do hundreds of prostrations in her room before the regular activities of the morning. And sometimes I would join her. She's a more enthusiastic prostrator than me.
And then I can't do them at all.
And so then together, representing our Korean lineages, we served on the membership committee of the American Zen Teachers Association, where new members would apply to join the organization. We were together with some other teachers representing other Zen lineages, figure out whether to accept them or not. And Judy was the chairman. And so for every couple of months, for actually several years, we would see each other on Zoom. Let's see, what else? She originally came to Buddhism in 1976 at Cambridge Zen Center in Boston. And it wasn't long after that she went to Lawrence, Kansas. She's like a mathematics professor. And so she went to university to teach there. And started a meditation group, which eventually turned into a full-fledged Zen Center in the Kwannon tradition. She and her husband were married there by the head teacher and the founder, Sun Sang, very, very dynamic Korean teacher. Let's see. Something that really fascinates me about Judy is that when we were at the Vermont Center for one of our AZTA meetings, at the end of the meeting, somehow Judy broke into song in the dining room. And it was really lovely. And it was some song from her Jewish tradition. And she still says, she's good. I'm Jewish too. So she has in her lineage, her family lineage, a grandfather who was beautiful, she said, wonderful cantor, famous cantor. So that's leading the spiritual singing. And her father was also the cantor. So she said she picked a lot up, and so she used to sing some of the beautiful and difficult songs. And we noticed yesterday when she was leading us that 5 stars. So it's really my pleasure to again welcome you, Judy, and to introduce Judy to all of you this morning. She's going to talk about her journey.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Bridget. Yeah, these Japanese traditions, they don't understand prostrations. So we would have to do them on our own because they do like 3 or 9 or something. But now I have my knee, can't do it. Yeah, so actually there is no journey. I want to be very clear about that. And there's no one to take a journey either. I was asked to talk a little bit about my introduction to practice and various sort of events. And the first thing I want to talk about is long before I ever practiced any form of meditation, long before people in this country were very aware of meditation. I was a senior at Sarah Lawrence College. This was 1965. Raise your hand if you were born before 1965. Yeah, not very many of us are there. So, and it was advertised that there was going to be a Buddhist monk that was going to give a talk. And I knew nothing about Buddhism. Absolutely nothing except that it was sort of cool. You know? Because, the beatniks. I mean, I'm that old, the before hippies, beatniks. And so I thought, okay, I'll go listen to this, this Zen monk. So I go in there and, there's a stage and there are 2 people sitting on the stage. And they're wearing these robes, one arm is bare. And much, much later I wrote and said, who was that guy? And I said, oh, he was from Tibet. He's some Tibetan teacher. But anyway, so there was the guy from, the Tibetan teacher, and his face was very tight, like there was no slack in his face. His skin was drawn very tight, and his arm was very thin, and he looked to me like a mummy. He looked to me like a mummy. And next to him was this American guy, the translator, and he was very big, and of course he had a shaved head, but he was very, very hairy. So like, his arm hair is coming out, his chest hair sort of peeking out, and he looked like a Marine. So he's wearing his robes, and they're sitting there, not moving. And I always tell this story. I say, I'm from New York. I never saw anyone sit still before. But it was terrifying. I just started freaking out. Who are these people? And then the deal was, you didn't raise your hand to ask a question, and he didn't give like a talk. I said there was a basket, and people put questions in that basket. And I didn't have any questions because I knew nothing, but there were people who did have questions. And it was the sort of thing where someone would have a question like, how do I find inner peace? And his response would be something like, the butterfly on the goldenrod. And I think that doesn't make any sense. And so this sort of went on for about 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm not sitting there like this. I'm sitting there like, what is going on here? And I'm getting like weirder and weirder and crazier and more freaked out. And finally, I bolt out of the room, bolt out of the building. It was nighttime. And as soon as I was out of the building, I started screaming. Because I was so freaked out. And luckily one of my close friends was in her room, we had dormitories, was in her room. I run, knock on her door, Nancy, Nancy, Nancy. I saw, seen the most horrible thing. I saw this guy like a mummy and this guy like a Marine, and they weren't making sense. And I don't want anything to do with Buddhism ever. And she had to calm me down, she just had to calm me down because I was so freaked out. Well, 10 years later, after I had started doing meditation, because I was very, 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 very anxious and a little bit delusional, and luckily I had a good therapist, but I started doing, the stuff for heart disease. You just say one all the time, and you sit there, any posture, and you just hold it for 20 minutes. And I had been doing this desperately because I was so miserable, but then I had this foot shrink and kind of lifted, and so, okay, now I was ready to meditate with other people. So there was this beautiful, beautiful Zen center that I would pass all the time in Cambridge, where I lived, and it had this beautiful lawn, this beautiful building set way back, beautiful gardens, not the kind of gardens we have now for butterflies and bees, but the formal gardens, that everybody had back then. And I thought, and it was Yom Kippur, and I didn't go to shul at the time, but I always observed Yom Kippur, and I thought, well, the way I'll observe Yom Kippur, I usually go hiking in the mountains or something, but I couldn't do that. So I said, I'll go to practice Zen. So I looked up Cambridge Zen Center, and it was in Alston, and I said, okay, maybe they moved. And of course, it was a different Zen Center entirely, but I go into Cambridge Zen Center, which is in Alston. It's this funky building. Now it's a fabulous place. There's this funky building, and sort of like your yellow building, except maybe 2/3 the size. And I walk in like 2 minutes before practice starts. And somebody says to me, do you have a practice? I said, yes, what's your practice? And, I was in the kitchen talking to them, what's your practice? And I said, counting breaths. And one of them rolled around and said, and how many have you counted? And I thought, I'm home. I'm just home. And so I go in and somebody hits the bell, not like that bell, but a really nice bell, like the one you have in the other Dharma room, like standard temple bell. And I just felt, I'm home. So I started sitting there, and I was taking a class that they were giving an introduction to Zen, and the teacher was Johnny Kabat-Zinn, who at the time was a teacher of Zen Master Sung-San. So that was interesting. So I know Johnny from way back. I get to call him Johnny. But anyway, so so then, they were going to have a retreat. They had monthly retreats, and they were going to have a retreat. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for this retreat. I was very excited. At that point in time, the retreat started on Thursday night and went until Sunday night. So they were, long 3 days. And the Wednesday or so before the retreat, Zen Master Sung-San was going to give a public talk at practice. So of course, I was going to practice several times a week, and I was very excited. I was going to meet the Zen Master, and I was sure the Zen Master would look at me and say, "Oh, you're already enlightened," But anyway, so Zen Master Sung-San, appears, and our form is someone gives an introductory talk, and then the teacher, responds to questions. And so, he would do things like he would, pick up in my case, a thermos, a water bottle, and say, is this a water bottle or is this not a water bottle? And I would think he didn't answer the question. And he'd hold up his watch and he'd say, is this a watch or not a watch? And he'd say something. He didn't answer the question. And on he'd go, and I didn't understand anything. Now, his English was terrible. He had a very strong accent. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that I didn't understand a word that he said. Nothing made sense. I kept thinking, he didn't answer the question. He didn't answer the question. He didn't answer the question. And I was, sitting in the back of the room, just like, he didn't answer the question. What is going on here? And I was completely freaked out. I was so freaked out that I couldn't drive myself home. And so I called another friend, and she came and got me. And at that time, I wasn't a vegetarian, so she took me out to a late night place, and I fed me a pastrami sandwich. So I'd have a lot of, like, calm down, calm down, calm down, absorb whatever chemicals are in your body. And we walked around the neighborhood, and I'm going, I don't get anything. I don't understand anything. I don't understand anything. I'm slashing my hands, I'm slashing my hands, I'm slashing my hands. And she looks at me and she says, I had a friend who was hospitalized in Tangiers for existential anxiety. So that was my introduction to Zen. And of course, what that was don't know. Which, being a PhD mathematician and somebody who always was in the 99th percentile and all that, maths tests, whatever you call them, those things that everyone takes. And someone who'd always gotten straight A's except in chemistry, where I got a C because I can't memorize worth anything. It never occurred to me that maybe I didn't know anything. And my sense was that everything that I thought I knew was unreal and worthless. And the only thing that I had to do was to learn whatever it is this man knew, which of course was not well, but I didn't know. And so it was just this sense of my whole life was based on something that was completely unstable, and that there was a place of stability that you could find, and that what I had to do was to find it. So that was my introduction to Zen. And I don't know if you want me to say more, or if I should ask you questions, or what should we do?
I should ask her questions.
Good.
She's really good at answering questions.
Is this a water bottle? This is not a water bottle.
So give it a moment, give your kind of deepest questions.
Or your shallow questions. We talked about Taylor Swift the other day. So, anything you want to ask, except not about the stock market. I don't understand the stock market. Yes.
Thank you, Judy, for being here. I have two questions. One is,
Could you show them out, please?
sure, is that a mic? Two questions, Judy. One is, in your professional life as a mathematician, where does Zen practice sort of fit in? Like, is there an overlap? And the second question is sort of more general, which is, in your view, where does Zen and mathematics overlap?
What is there to overlap? So we have this idea that certain things, like certain kinds of poems are Zen poems, and other kinds of poems are not Zen poems. Certain kind of music is Zen music. Other kinds of music is not Zen music. Rap, heavy metal, But one makes these distinctions. So Zen means this strong center, this open heart, this clear mind. That's what Zen means. And Zen means your direction is not about making your life comfortable. My teacher used to say, find your true self, help all beings. Not first one, then the other, simultaneously. So Zen infuses everything we do, and there is nothing we do if we practice that is not Zen. Also, Zen is not special. It's just a word. It's just something we make up, But do we have this strong center? Do we have this open heart? Do we have this clear mind? And then that infuses whatever you do. Now, it happens that the mathematics that I did had to do with alternate models of the universe and infinite numbers. Doesn't that sound Zen? But that's not the point. You know? So yeah, so everything, you bring your practice infuses you. And it's not like you bring your practice with you, it's your practice comes with you in everything you do. Okay? Thank you. Back there.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your presence. You know what I was struck by when you first opened up, which was the heart of Zen, that there is no journey and there's no one's taking the journey.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher would often say, if you look for it, you won't find it. But if you look at it, it's always there. And when you made the comment about the Zen master held up the water jar and he held up his watch, said, is this a water jar or not a water jar? The frustration came in my early practice when I was seeking it intellectually and now learning to live it into it.
I'm sorry, my hearing's not good. Could you repeat what you just said?
When you said about the water bottle,
Yeah, after that.
that was the same frustration I had in my early practice. with my
Frustration,
teacher.
okay, uh-huh.
I was seeking it intellectually, but I would not allow myself to live it into it.
Yeah.
See, what, as you said earlier to the first speaker, have an open mind, open heart. And this is what is through our practice, we're able to obtain a level of clarity, purity, and spontaneity. A clarity of mind, a purity of heart, a spontaneity in my actions, which is all natural, authentic, unconditional. And I'm glad you came here this morning. That just made my whole day. Don't mistake in this journey, because there's no journey to take.
Mm-hmm.
See, and that was the heart of Zen in your opening statement. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes.
I'd like to know if there was a moment you can pinpoint in your life, in
Life
your
is
present, whatever, where it all made sense, or where something made full sense to you.
good. Okay, thank you. So,
Repeat what she said.
yeah, so the question is, was there a moment when it all made sense? So this desire to have things make sense is a huge trap because they don't make sense. Human beings impose sense on the world. My teacher used to say, no meaning is great meaning. If we look for meaning, you know, the purpose of my life is to blah, blah, blah. Then we're like a horse with blinders on. And we can't see what's here, we can't see what's there, and we certainly can't see what's behind us. We can only see our idea of what we're supposed to be doing. So this desire for meaning is a trap. And it's better to give up this desire for meaning and to see what's there. This world is red. Your shirt is blue. Your hair is yellow. My hair is white. You don't need more meaning than that. And then you can let the world come in. Instead of trying to define the world, which is what so many of us do and what we're trained to do. Where the minute we begin to speak, the minute we're 2 years old and we start speaking, maybe some people 1.5, maybe some people 4, but at some point everyone starts speaking. And at that point, we're told to put the world into little packages, little boxes, and tie them up and say, I know what that means. But when we do that, we can't let this world in. You know, in the in the Zen tradition, there are all these stories of awakenings, and the monk got enlightenment. They never say the nun, it's always the monk. And so the monk got, that means someone awakened. And they always awaken at things like the sound of a bell, the sound of a bird, a fist fight outside in the street. I mean, there's actually a story of somebody who woke up, awakened because he heard this fist fight and he awakened, And that awakening means it's not special. It's just simply letting the world in and letting the sort of cage of ourself drop off. And then, oh, sure is blue. Look at that, It's very simple. But it's really hard to do because we're so conditioned. We're so conditioned to find a meaning. Something terrible happens. No one ever wants to find a meaning when something good happens. Nobody says, oh, I just got a promotion. I wonder what that means for me. But it's always like, somebody dies or you lose your job or, something terrible happens to a friend or you get a terrible illness and you want to find the meaning. The meaning is you have this illness or you lost your job. That's all, That's it. So it's a great relief, isn't it? You don't have to look for it. It's already there. So thank you for your question. Yes.
So, you said you were sort of raised, sort of at least somewhat practicing Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you've had this experience with Zen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that later on in life that through your experiences with this sort of stuff, you maybe gained a better understanding of your upbringing with Judaism? Are there any sort of aha moments that you had while going through Zen that you had with Judaism?
Thank you. That's a good question, and I'm assuming a lot of people in this room have the same question, except substitute Judaism for some form of Christianity or something else. So I should tell you about my life in Judaism. I was raised a good little Jewish girl. My father was a cantor in the synagogue, so we had to go to synagogue. I got out of going to Hebrew school because I had a very serious illness in 4th grade, and I couldn't go to any kind of school, and I fell behind and said, I don't want to go. My parents said, okay, because I was a girl. If I was a boy, I would have had to go. My brother went to yeshiva, but I was a girl. And then when I was 11 years old, I went down to the kitchen and I announced to my mother that I did not believe in God, that there was no God. I didn't believe in that. There was no God. And she looked at me horrified and she said, he will strike you dead, which I think she was saying out of fear, but I heard it as, she was waiting for him to strike me dead. Well, he hasn't. So I obviously had this kind of, and I still had to go to shul because my father was the cantor. And then as soon as I could, I quit. But Yom Kippur always stayed with me. There's something about, this 26 hours of fasting and no liquid that it really seemed worth doing. So I always observed Yom Kippur in some way, always. And then I started practicing Zen. And then, as you said, it's like when I would go to shul and I would read these words, and my son, who is dyslexic and has a hard time reading, I mean, he's in his 40s now, but I remember as a kid, he would look at the prayer book and he'd say, this doesn't make any sense because it's just one word of praise after another word of praise. It doesn't make any sense. It's not saying anything. You could say it in 3 words or something. But so I was really put off by the prayer book. And I was really put off by a lot of things in the Torah. They just seem, ridiculous to me. But then after I started practicing Zen, I started seeing what a friend of mine likes to call the behind meaning, where they're pointing. And then I was able to go to shul with my parents or with my grandmother or something like that on those rare times when I was, around them, because at that point I'd moved away. And it felt okay. I could daven in English because I didn't know Hebrew, but I could daven. And then we wanted, my husband and I tried to make a baby, and we couldn't make a baby, so we needed to adopt a baby, and we were working through Jewish Family and Children's Services, and we had to convince him we were a Jewish family, and he's, ex-Catholic, so it was a little difficult. So we started going to the local shul, which was very funky and had no rabbi, and was all entirely lay-led. And I really liked it. And so I still go. I'm on the nominating committee, in fact. I have, as Hadu said, I would lead some of the more complicated prayers because I sort of knew them from hanging around my father. I still go. I still go to shul. My deep practice is Buddhism, it's Zen. That's my deep spiritual, whatever you want to call it, practice. But there's something in Judaism that I'm also part of, and I don't want to separate from. So that's my story. And everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own way of relating to their childhood religion. And my brother has become a total Unitarian. He says, I don't call myself a Jew anymore. And I think, well, if Hitler were here, you would be a Jew. So, why do you say that? But so everyone has their own story, and everyone has their own way of relating, and it can change. It can change drastically. So thank you for your question. Oh, okay.
Thank you. This has been wonderful listening to you. Thank you so much. I am one of 4 children who are taking care of my mother who has Alzheimer's and is in assisted living. And I have really been struggling with trying to understand selfishness and care for others. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, don't understand selfishness or care, understand your mother. So we have these ideas. Am I being selfish? Am I being caring? That's about you. That's not important. The important thing is, are you there for your mother in the way that she needs you to be there, and in the way that given all your other obligations, you are able to be there. My husband's mother had Alzheimer's. His sister had Alzheimer's, and many of his aunts and uncles had Alzheimer's. So we were somewhat, and his mother was living with us when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So we have a little bit of understanding of what you're going through. Not as much because she moved back down to be near her daughters when her Alzheimer's stuff was. But I remember when we visited her, funny thing, she was Catholic, but she was in a Jewish old age home because it had a great Alzheimer's unit. And down in Jacksonville where her 2 daughters lived. And I remember there was one daughter who was a first grade teacher, wonderful first grade teacher, wonderful person. And my mother-in-law, May, she'd get really upset about something and like she'd say, where's Pete, her husband? Where's Pete? Why isn't Pete here? Now Pete had died like 20 years earlier, Where's Pete? Where's Pete? And the rest of us are like, what can we tell? Should we tell her he died? And Nancy would just say, well, he's coming tomorrow. And she'd go, oh, okay, he's coming tomorrow, So that might, unfortunately, Nancy's the one who also died of Alzheimer's. So that mind where instead of being caught up in how we think things should be, that mind of just completely being with that person and being able to respond in the moment. That's all. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. So good luck to you and good luck to your mom. Thank you.
First, may I say, all these questions are being answered. And everything you say really does make sense.
I don't know if it's good or bad.
It's good for me today.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. And my question for you is, you mentioned freaking out a lot and anxiety, something I can relate to, cognitive distortions, defense mechanisms that may have served me in a cruel time and place, but no longer do and are impediments. Was there a time for you when this fell away, and how did that happen?
Yes, and unfortunately it was not through Zen practice. So, but I should tell you about it. This is a watermelon.
Are you sure?
There's water in it, so that makes it a water bottle. Unless it's vodka, you wouldn't know. So, yeah, so when I moved to the Boston area, I was teaching at Wellesley. And I had had an emotionally very difficult childhood for all kinds of reasons, and it doesn't matter. And I was so angry all the time, I didn't even see it as anger. And I had all kinds of problems in relating to people, et cetera, et cetera. And so moving away from graduate school and into a place where I didn't know anybody was really destabilizing for me. And I started becoming suicidal, and it was really hard. And I started calling therapists in the Boston area. And this was a time when you call a therapist and they'd pick up the phone. You know, it was a long time ago. And everyone I called said, "Oh, I can see you in 6 months. I can see you in a year," something like that. And this one woman picked up the phone and she said, "I can see you in 6 weeks." And then she said, "Is this an emergency?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, I can see you next week." And so I went to see her, and she did Gestalt therapy. And I don't know how many people know about Gestalt therapy. It's not your standard talk therapy, and unfortunately, it's not something that these days insurance will pay for. It's a very different form of therapy. A typical Gestalt thing, it's actually very, just leave it on the floor. It's actually very Zen, because a typical Gestalt thing is, I come in, I never remember my dreams, but I come in and I tell my therapist, Ludmilla Hoffman, Noah, she had this fabulous Czechoslovakian accent because it was still Czechoslovakian. She was very elegant. She had like bleach blonde hair and, high boots and, fancy skirts and stuff. She was a very elegant woman and perfect makeup. And anyway, I come in and I say, Noah, I remembered a dream. I remembered a dream. Should I tell you about my dream? She said, "Oh, yeah, tell me about your dream." And I said, "Okay." I'm walking down a road. She says, "Oh, what's it like to be a road?" And I said, "No, that's not the point of the dream. I'm just walking down this road." She will tell me what it's like to be the road. I said, "Okay, Mom. Okay, I'm gray. I'm made out of asphalt. People walk on me. They don't care about me. Nobody loves me." And I'm just sobbing into tears. So that's how Gestalt was, sort of like Collins, sort of like Collins. So it's like, it's just, whoop. So I went through about 2 years with Mila. And meanwhile, I'm doing this relaxation response meditation twice a day. I mean, to the point where if I was traveling with friends, cross country, and I'd say, "Oh, 4 o'clock, stop the car, everyone get out of the car, I'm getting the back seat, I'm going to meditate." Because I was desperate, I was holding on to things. And so one day, I'm sitting in Noah's office after about 2 years of therapy, and I looked at her and I said, "I don't have to be this way anymore, do I?" And she said, "No, you don't." And if you've ever seen a tornado lift from the ground and disappear into the clouds, that's exactly what happened. It lifted and it disappeared. Now, that's not saying I don't get angry and anxious and frustrated and everything like everybody else sad, everything. But the point is that doesn't control me anymore. It doesn't take over my life anymore. So that was my experience. Now, there are other people who have experienced things like that through meditation, through prostrations, especially prostrations, which I can't do anymore. Chanting, whatever, Zen practice. There are people who have been able to have that kind of lift. But it's this realization that you don't have to be that way anymore. Because you don't. Nobody does. Whatever way we are, we don't have to be that way anymore. That goes also if you're happy all the time and you don't understand why anyone is, you don't have to be that anymore. Okay? So I wish you great good luck. It's really hard being human.
I have a question, but first comment I wanted to make, given the paper we read from yours, is would you consider Noah an ancestor? Like the women who wake up as Zen masters of Bengal get to wake up by a monk, but the woman plays the role first. Seems like she played a great role.
Well, she did play a
Yeah.
great role. Yeah.
Not as opposed to Sun Tzu, like would you consider her an ancestor?
No, because what Miller was doing was helping me overcome my karma, but it was not about helping this world. So my teacher would always say, not for me. So there was a student in our school, Si Hoi Liao. He was I think a sculptor from Hawaii, Chinese American or maybe Chinese Korean from Hawaii, and he lived in LA. And he started practicing with the Master Sun Sun, and he was a very cheeky sort of guy. And so one day he wrote, the Master Sun Sun was always traveling, so he wrote the Master Sun Sun a postcard and said, "What is the fast road to Zen?" Wouldn't you like to know the fast road to Zen? Everyone wants to know the fast road to Zen, right? What is the fast road to Zen? And Zen Master Sun Sun sends the postcard back with a commentary, not for me. So therapy is wonderful. I mean, literally saved my life. But it's not Zen practice. Because therapy is about taking care of yourself. And Zen practice is about dropping yourself and opening to this world and stepping in where you're needed. So therapy prepared me to practice Zen. I could not have practiced Zen before I worked with Miller. But I don't understand what an ancestor means. She was a tremendous help to me. I literally owe her my life, but not an ancestor. Yeah, it's something different. Yeah, people tend to confuse Zen and therapy. A lot of people, and maybe a lot of people in this room, come to Zen as a form of therapy. Now, Zen is wonderful, but it's not therapy. The way I like to tell it, and friends of mine who are therapists saying, "Don't say that, Judy," but the way I like to tell it is that therapy is about taking a story that doesn't work and replacing it with a story that does work. And we all need stories. Like, okay, the story right now, and if you've seen me on YouTube, I say this all the time, the story right now is that I'm the teacher, I'm teaching, you're the audience, you're asking questions, here's my friend Haji, also a teacher, right? That's the story, and we're all part of that story, but it's just a story, And we're working within the lines of that story, and you have to have a story to work with. But to work within, like you're driving down the street, you have to know what side of the street to drive on. You have to know how to react to a red light and a green light. So we need these stories, but some of these stories are really dysfunctional. And so therapy helps us replace the dysfunctional stories with functional stories. Zen helps us cut through the stories. We can see that it's just a story. We hold it as a story. We still abide by it. We still work within it. But we can shift it. We can change it. We can move out. Shift it to another story. That's what common practice is about. Shifting to another story. A monk asked, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" Jogi says no, which means no, it has not. I ask you, does a dog have Buddha nature? If you say yes, you're trapped in a story. If you say no, you're trapped in a story. Same story you're trapped in, just from different points of view. So how do you step out of that story and shift it? So yeah. Did that answer your question? Over there.
Okay, another question. So you talked about your first experience with Buddhism and sort of this Tibetan person saying golden butterfly, golden rod, and everything like that. And usually, with a lot of religious language, I kind of find a lot of things that might not be as immediately understandable. Do you think that with that kind of language, was he trying to be purposefully mysterious because you can't really come to
I have no idea. I have no idea what he was trying to be.
Okay.
That was 1965. I didn't know the man. I never spoke to the man. I never got to say, hey, what do you think you were doing up there? I have no idea what he was doing. Yeah. He was probably working within his tradition.
Yeah.
He was working within his tradition, and that was his story. I was living in another story. The stories didn't meet.
So you think it would just like make more sense maybe to a person who is like maybe from Tibet?
It probably made more sense to everyone else in the room. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions back there?
I was wondering if you had any thoughts about what to do with being or feeling stuck in practice. And I guess the example I'm thinking of is in our contemporary world, we have so many distractions and everything is so hyper fast. And so it seems so easy to get caught up in everything. And that, discipline just disappears. So what to do with all that?
Well, you already know the answer, which is practice. Don't make excuses. Think of practice as a vacation. Oh boy, yeah, it's a vacation. It's a vacation from everything else. Of course, everything else appears because it's in your mind, right? Okay. But yeah, so just, it's like, I don't know, when I got transmission and, you get a little speech from your teacher, your transmission teacher. And my transmission teacher, because Zen Master Swenson had died by then, my transmission teacher was a good friend of mine, Zen Master De Kwangson. He was a monk, and he had actually started practice at Kansas Zen Center. And he gave this talk. His praise talk about me wasn't that I was wonderful or I was wise or, that I really had, I don't know, embodied the Dharma or anything like that. What he said was that I showed up. And I was very insulted at the time. But yeah, just show up. Decide what you're going to practice every day, when you come here, what you do at home, when you do it, and then you stick to it and you do it. And you just do it unless like your house is burning down or something, That's all. Nothing more than that. And then you asked another question about the practice being stuck. So you had sort of two questions. One is about not doing practice. So your practice isn't stuck, it just doesn't exist. And then the other, and I should say that I stopped practice for 2 years at a certain point. So I understand that now, and I'm not checking it, I'm not judging it. I'm very glad I stopped practice after about, I guess it was about 15 years. I suddenly stopped practicing for 2 years. I don't know why, I just stopped. And my husband was very freaked out about it. He said, he kept trying to get me to go to practice. And I said, if you keep trying to get me to go to practice, I'll never go to practice again. So he shut up about it. And then I quietly started practicing on my own at home without telling him. And then one day I said, honey, I've been practicing. I think I'll go to the Zen Center. So I understand not practicing. Sometimes that happens. But there's also this thing about being stuck in our practice. And being stuck in the practice, you're sitting there on a cushion, and you just feel like you're getting nowhere. So you say, why am I here? I'm not attaining deep samadhi, whatever it is, my mind's going there. So any state of mind is fertile grounds for practice. When you think you're stuck, is the most wonderful thing, because then you can see your karma really, really clearly. Anything that happens in practice is a gift. If you feel terrible, that's wonderful, because then you understand what it is to feel terrible. Because in practice, there are no consequences. No consequences at all. Whatever arises in your mind, you don't follow through on it until the bell or the alarm or whatever is going to end practice rings. So whatever state of mind arises, it's not a problem. And what we recommend often to beginners is just simply counting your breath. There are many practices. I do Wadu, but many practices. And so let's say your practice is counting your breath. So then you find your mind wandering. And maybe you're thinking about some obsession of yours, like this person at work who really doesn't like you and tries to sabotage you all the time. Whatever. No one ever thinks of ice cream and lollipops. They always think of, But anyway, something is sort of sabotaging you. And then you can see, oh, that's what's sabotaging me. And then you bring them back to counting your breaths. And gradually, these things lose their hold on you. So being stuck is a gift. When I sit long solo retreats, when I have sat long solo retreats, and the first, 5 or 6 days, you're on a mountaintop somewhere, and it's really beautiful, and you can sort of enter these samadhi states, and this is so wonderful. That's not when the retreat begins. The retreat begins, you start getting really pissed off, and things hurt, and you're bored, and what's going on at home, and your mind is just bouncing all over the place. That's when the retreat begins. So being stuck, being not stuck, not a problem. Practicing is not about attaining states of mind. Practicing is about this strong center, this open heart, this clear mind. So just allow that to develop. And whatever arises, you don't have to engage with it. Shunryu Suzuki uses the image of a shotgun house. Shotgun house. You open the front door, you see another door, you open that door, there's another room, and there's a back door. If you open all the doors, you shoot a shotgun, the bullet goes through the house, that's why it's called the shotgun house. So let your mind be like the shotgun house with all the doors open. And the thought wanders in, and it wanders out, wanders in, wanders out. You don't have to hold it, you don't have to attach to it. And my teacher called these things your backseat driver. And he would say, you tell your backseat driver, shut up! So tell your backseat driver to shut up. And when it's time to sit on the cushion or my kitchen chair, do it. Just do it. No excuses. Okay? So thank you for your questions. 2 questions to 1. Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes.
My teacher once said,
Who's your teacher?
Wasan Sunum at Detroit Zen Center.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Wasan Sunum at Detroit Zen Center.
Okay.
That's where
Okay.
I took my precepts.
Okay.
He once said, young child, we didn't come here to learn, we come to unlearn. These concepts, views, opinions, and judgments. Can you speak on that for a minute as a teacher?
You just did. Yeah, don't know. Wake up this don't know mind. Yeah. Don't make these little boxes. Don't put everything in these little nicely wrapped boxes and you can put it away. Just keep this don't know all the time. You ever see a baby being born?
On TV.
You saw a baby being born on TV?
Or
Really? Like
Channel.
you saw Okay, I helped a friend once. I wasn't a doula, I was just a friend, to hold her hand while her husband held the other hand. And her baby, the head came out, and then the rest of the baby was kind of stuck because the water had broken too early. And so it was very interesting because we saw this baby, and it was also interesting because my friend had not wanted to know the gender of the baby. So we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. There's this head, this human head, sticking out of my friend. And it was interesting seeing that. It's a boy or a girl, who cares? It's a boy or a girl, what I mean. But this head is sticking out, and it's going just taking it all in. That's done now. Yeah. Then the rest of the baby came out and, became a person. Any other questions? Or we're out of time, that's right. Oh, thank you.
Are you doing announcements, Mama?
No.
Would you like some announcements?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so today we have a Choose Your Own Adventure. Do you know the Choose Your Own Adventure novels?
Yeah.
Okay, Adventure 1 is we are going to be making beautiful dedication slips that will hang from these lanterns for Buddha's birthday, which is coming up on May 19th, the most celebratory day in the Buddhist calendar. You can make a lantern dedication for a loved one who has passed, maybe an intention for peace on earth, beloved pet, really anything that you want. If you would like to also make a financial contribution to the temple as a result of supporting Buddha's birthday activities, we also have the ability to accept payment by credit card, which is a rare occurrence. Choose Your Own Adventure number 2 is Tea with Judy. Are you having tea with people which will be in this room. So after we formally end service, if I could ask your assistance in putting away the mats and cushions that are not touching the red carpet at the center of the room, we will then put out some chairs in a circle and pour tea, and you're welcome to stay for a few minutes afterward and have tea and perhaps any other topics of discussion. And then Choose Your Own Adventure 3 is working in the garden, right? So for just 15 minutes, if you go in the backyard and find Haju, she will help assign you to some type of gardening duty. Okay, or those are the 3 main things, correct? All right, so.
Well, so you can give money for number 2 and 3.
Yes. There's a couple extra flyers because Buddha's birthday does have many activities associated with it, including 2 public services, one at 10 a.m. and one at 7 p.m. on May 19th. And so you're welcome to come to either or both of those. The 7 p.m. service is the special lighting ceremony for these lanterns. And the morning service will be our all Sangha service, which includes the children and families. There will be the ritual of bathing the baby Buddha, and then we will have a lunch of potluck items, which you can sign up to bring a potluck item. And also potentially volunteer time helping at the buffet line. And then there will be an enormous cake of some kind. So you're welcome to take either of these. If you want to sign up for anything, you can also do so online, and there's more information on the flyers. Otherwise, please join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. for these public services, and then at 4 p.m. on the first and third Sundays, we have an additional in-person service. Let's see, yoga classes are currently meeting Tuesdays from 6:30 to 8. And is the Recovery Dharma group meeting today?
Yes, Recovery Dharma will meet at noon in the historic temple next door.
Wonderful. I think that was everything that I could do. Okay.
Remember last week, if you were here, one of our prison volunteers was not here, so could not receive the special gift which was sent from Huron Valley to appreciate the work that he does, along with 3 others of our Sangha members, to help with the women's prison, and that person is Buki. And it's a lovely bag. I don't know what's in it. I've been wanting to look, but it's volunteers, giving, caring, making a difference. Thank you. Well, so now the 4 great vows, and then we'll do the 3 vows to then go to the 3 choices. Well, it's hard to choose. Okay, so the 4 great vows. Would you read, Judy from our cousin organization has a different version of the 3 vows, and I think 4 great vows. And I think it's good for us, to hear other interpretation.
So I'll say each one and then you repeat after me. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all.
Sentient beings are numberless, we vow to save them all.
Delusions are endless, we vow to cut through them all.
Delusions are endless, we vow to cut through them all.
The teachings are infinite, we vow to learn them all.
The teachings are infinite, we vow to learn them all.
The Buddha way is inconceivable, we vow to attain it.
The Buddha way is inconceivable, we vow to attain it.
So 3 slow bounce. Please go ahead and put the mats and cushions in.